my children. This is your internet grandfather, the younger boomer. Welcome to my virtual front porch. Gather round, children. I have something very important to tell you today on a very serious subject. In my 70 years on this planet, I have seen a lot, done a lot, and I've been a lot of things. Among them, I've been a veteran, a medical professional, a father, a husband, a coach. I've even been an ex-husband. And most important for our talk today, a cancer survivor. Not once, but twice. My first battle with cancer was back in 2002. Uh, and that was with a malignant melanoma. It started out as a mole on my left knee, and uh, at the time, I was told by the media, by everybody, that if it wasn't bigger than a pencil eraser, it was, oh, you didn't have to worry too much about it. There were three things it talked about. One was it smaller than a pencil eraser, uniform in color, and uniform in shape, relatively uniform in shape. And mine was smaller than a pencil eraser. It was the same brown color all over, and it was pretty round. It wasn't any kind of odd shape. Well, after a little bit, it got bigger than a pencil eraser. So I decided to see a dermatologist about it. Well, if you live in the South, particularly in Florida, where I do, where the sun beats down relentlessly most of the year, even in the wintertime, to be honest with you, and it's difficult to get in to see a dermatologist as a new patient. They're very busy down here, and getting in is kind of tough. Well, I finally found one that was taking new patients, so I made an appointment and I went to see her. So she looked at me head to toe, inspected everything, front and back, and when she was done, she said, "Well, you have a lot of freckles. You have some moles there too. Um, you this puts you at a risk, especially here in Florida, of possibly running into issues with cancer, skin cancer." And she said that she wanted me to try to stay out of the sun, and if I couldn't, to wear sunscreen. "Do you have any questions?" she asked me. And I said, "Yeah." I said, "What about this on my knee?" And she said, "Oh, that's a," and she gave it a name. Now, her attitude automatically gave me relief. I didn't realize how stressed out I was about it until that moment when the weight was lifted off of me. And I said, "Well, okay." I thought to myself, "Well, okay, it's not that." So I didn't really pay attention to what she said it actually was. But she said, "I can burn it off if you want me to." And I was like, "Ah, no, that's okay. It's fine." I didn't really enjoy the idea of having it froze off. I'd had uh, things frozen off of me before. Most of them were plantar warts on my feet, and it wasn't a fun experience. So I declined, and I went on my merry way. Well, after a while, it got bigger and bigger, and it got to the point where it was about the size of a nickel. And because I live in Florida, I pretty much wear shorts all the time when I'm not working. And it was ugly. That was the thing I was concerned about it. And I thought to myself, well, I'll just go back and have her burn it off or freeze it off. Well, before I could make that appointment, I had an appointment with my general practitioner. And I was sitting on the little gurney on the crinkly paper, and my doctor opened the door, took 2 steps in, pointed at my knee, and said, "What is that?" And I told her that I couldn't explain it because I don't really remember what it was called, but I saw a dermatologist about it, and she said it was okay. And my doctor said, "You need to get a second opinion." And I go, "Okay, that's back to this again. Now I'm worried about it." So she gave me a referral to a another dermatology. This was a dermatological surgeon, and I was able to get in because of the referral. I was able to get in fairly quickly. So I show up at my appointment with the new dermatologist, and she looks at it, and right away she is very concerned. She does a biopsy and stitches that up and sends me home. This was like on a Thursday, I believe it was, because I remember that I got a call from her office on a Saturday, and they're not even really open on Saturday, but I got a call, and they said that your your biopsy came back for melanoma, and you need to be in our office first thing Monday morning. And so I spent the rest of Saturday and all Sunday worrying about this melanoma. And I said to my, how can the first, how can that first dermatologist be wrong? There's got to be some mistake. I mean, she's a dermatologist, and she said it, and she gave it a name even. I wish I could remember what the name was. Well, I go in, I show up as soon as they open the doors, and I get whisked right into the back. And as they're prepping me, putting the sterile paper all over me and getting the site ready, she says to me, she says, "Well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have to take a centimeter all the way around it." Now, this was already as big as a nickel, right? So a centimeter all around it. We're gonna have to go a centimeter deep, and that's going to take it into the muscle tissue. So we're going to be taking some of the muscle tissue as well. And the problem is that it's going to be too big of a hole for me to just stitch together. So what I'm going to have to do is take a skin graft from somewhere else, probably under one of your arms on the underside, and then we'll put a patch on it. You need to tell which arm do you want to use. And I'm like, well, I'm right-handed, so do the left. And you can see here the scar where they took the patch out. They took a football shaped piece like this to put and a, it ended up being about this big around that they took out of my knee, 1 full centimeter around the width, around the circumference of the mole. So I had a pretty big hole in my knee, and they patched it up. And they put up this big packing thing on top. It packed it, and I had to go back for every couple of days to have them debris it and check it and stuff like that. And I had to take antibiotics and all that stuff. Well, to shorten this already long story, the labs they sent that chunk to the lab to check it to see if the melanoma had sent any feelers out. If it did, they were going to have to take more. Well, I got lucky. The lab came back and said all of the rest of the tissue all around it was clean. That the melanoma had stayed on the skin surface of the skin. Um, she told me that it was very rare for this to happen, and that I was very fortunate. And she said, "You're going to have to get for a full year. You're going to have to get X-rays every month or two to make sure that your lungs are clear, because apparently that's where melanoma sends its cancer cells when it breaks off." So I had a year of chest X-rays. Maybe it was two. That's a while ago. That was 24 years ago. So, but it came clear, and so I'm clear to that. So that is my melanoma history. Um, I got lucky, but it still was a very traumatic experience for me. Now we fast forward to last September, and this is August, so that was almost a year ago. I go into my general practitioner, same general practitioner, and her and I have a history. She wants me to take statins because my cholesterol is high, and I don't want to take them because uh, I felt that my risk was low. And she would prescribe them for me, and I would not take them. And eventually, she kind of gave up. But she said she still did the lab work on me every year. She said you're. She gave me. She said you're going to have to get some lab work done, and we're going to do another lipid panel on you, and some other tests, and then we'll see how everything looks. So I go and I get the test done, I get the blood work done, and I go on my merry way. Well, I get a phone call from her office and a couple of days later and said that I needed to come in because she wanted to talk to me about my test results. I thought she knows that I'm not going to take statins. So why does she want to know? Why does she want to talk to me about it? Like, okay, let me go in there and talk to. So I go in, and it wasn't about the lipid panel that she wanted to talk to me about. It was about another test she had done that I didn't really pay attention to. It was called a PSA test. Um, Basically, that stands for prostate sensitivity array. Everyone, every male who has a prostate, and some people have had it removed, but anyway, any male uh, is going to come back with a somewhat positive PSA test. As far as I know, no one has a zero PSA, and uh, but above 4 indicates the possible presence of prostate cancer, and it requires that you get further testing. Well, above 4, mine was 6.22. So she said, you need to make an appointment with the urologist. You need to have this checked out. So I go in, and the urologist says, yeah, we're going to have to do a test for you. I'm going to have you take a repeat PSA test, but we also have to we have to check out your prostate. Now I can put the finger glove on and we can do it that way. Probably a lot of you men know what I'm talking about. Or we can do a MRI. And I'm like, this or an MRI? Please, I'll take the MRI. So he sets me up with the MRI and I get more blood work drawn. And while I'm waiting for my MRI appointment, the blood test comes back 6.18, which is essentially not much different than the 6.22, right? So there was no mistake there. So I get the MRI and I come back in a few days for a follow up appointment. And he says, well, says your MRI came back clean. And I said, okay, good. He says, but MRIs can miss 30% of prostate cancers. I'm like, okay. I says, oh, what's the next step? And he says, well, he says, I have another blood test we can do. It's more precise. It's more accurate than the PSA test. And I said, is that 100%? And he says, well, no. And I said, what is 100%? He says, biopsy. Now, I am not a urologist. I am not a doctor. I am a healthcare professional, and I have seen a lot of procedures in my day. and I'm familiar with a lot of them, and I know what it means for a man to get a biopsy on his prostate, even though I've never actually seen one. I wasn't too keen about that, so I asked him. I said, it's 100%." He goes, "Without a doubt. If it comes clean, you don't have it." And I said, "Okay, let's do that." Now, I'm not going to go into the details about what a man has to go through to get a biopsy on his prostate, but I can tell you it is a very unpleasant experience. Anyway, had it done, and a few days later, I at the follow up appointment, he tells me that it's 100% sure you have prostate cancer. You have a Gleason score of 7. And he explained what the Gleason score meant. The Gleason score goes from 0 to 20, I think he said. And anything less than 7 is something that they will just follow. They won't do anything. They'll just keep an eye on it, do frequent PSAs, and just watch it. But it does mean that if I understand this correctly, that you have a early cancer or a mild cancer, and I guess that the treatment is not is not worth uh, the trouble that the treatment causes for that mild of a cancer. So, and a lot of times, I guess it takes care of itself. So they just watch it. But a 7 is intermediate. They call it intermediate, and it needs to be treated. Above a 7 is severe cancer, and the higher the number, the more severe. So I had a 7. I'm like, okay, that's intermediate. Okay. Uh, Now, one of the things that I want to mention here is that I was told even before my diagnosis that if you had to have cancer and you were allowed to choose the cancer that you were going to get, you would want to choose prostate cancer because it is the best responding to treatment. Prostate cancer responds better to treatment than any other cancer known to man. So that's the one, if you have to have cancer, that's the one to have. Well, I have a Gleason score of 7. It's intermediate. Okay. It's still cancer. So I'm gearing up. I'm ready. I'm going to go. I'm going to do what I have to. I'm going to take care of this thing. So he says, okay, the first thing we're going to do is you're going to get a PET scan, and the PET scan it's PET. I'm not sure exactly what it means, but it's a PET scan. It will tell us exactly where the cancer is, and it will see if it's spread anywhere. So I was scheduled for my PET scan. Funny story about the PET scan. I had MRIs several times. I've had CAT scans at least once, and I, no big deal. I sit in a tube. I'm not claustrophobic. They put the headphones on me, and I play some rock and roll. I have them play some rock and roll in it, and I just sit there for 20 minutes or so until they're done, and I'm done. Piece of cake, no problem, right? So I'm dressed in a gown, and I'm sitting on the crinkly paper, and this tech comes in the room. Now she's wearing a lead apron, which is the same one that people who do your x-rays wear. So that wasn't concerning, but what was concerning was what she had in her hand. She had a lead lined syringe, lead lined, okay, and a lead apron on. What she was getting ready to do was inject a radioactive isotope in me and use that for the PET scan. Now, apparently, this particular isotope is attracted to prostate cancer cells, and it will light them up wherever they are in the body. So my next step after the PET scan was a follow-up appointment with the oncologist, and he said that unfortunately, I my cancer had metastasized into the lymph node on the left side of my pelvis. Nowhere else, not in the bones, not in the lungs, not in any organs or anything like that. But it had metastasized into a lymph node. And lymph nodes, in case you don't know, they're all over the body, and the cancer kind of likes to travel by lymph nodes. So that was a bit concerning. So I looked him right in the eye and I said, "What is my prognosis? What are my chances here?" And he said, his face kind of brightened up a little bit, and he said, your prognosis is very good." So I'm on this drug called Orgovix, which stops my body from producing testosterone. Apparently, testosterone is what basically feeds prostate cancer cells. They feed off of it. So the next step was for me to get radiation treatments. And I ended up having to have radiation treatments Monday through Friday for 8 weeks. Every single day, Monday through Friday, I had the weekends off. I had to show up at the radiation oncology center and get zapped. It took about, I'd say, 2 solid minutes, I think, maybe a little less, for it to go. I had to go around my body. I laid out on a gurney, and the X-ray machine went completely around like this, back and forth, like 4 times, I believe it was. I had to do it for 8 weeks. I know people. I've talked to people who had prostate cancer, and they didn't have to go that long, probably because their cancer was isolated in their prostate. It had not metastasized. Well, I'm not going to go too deep into it unless somebody who is getting ready to go through it is curious and asks me about it. I'll make another video on what you have to do and what I went through, but this video is long enough as it is. It was not a fun experience. It was a lot of hard work. You have to have I had to have my bladder completely full, and I had to have my bowels completely empty. And it had to be the same for every radiation treatment. It was for my protection so that the prostate stayed in one place, and it was in the same place every time, so that the radiation, they could focus it on the cancer and try to eliminate the radiation damage to the rest of my body. So that was the point of that. And I had to do things like measure my urine. This I did on my own. I wasn't required to do it, but I found it easier to plan things so that I was at the maximum point right when I had my treatment. I measured my urine. I replaced what went out, and I tracked everything. And it was a tough time. For 8 weeks, my entire life revolved around pooping and peeing. So that was it. Well, and now it's been another 8 weeks since I completed my treatments, my cancer treatments, and I rang the bell. I think from what I understand, that's pretty common when you're having radiation treatments, no matter what you're having the treatment for. When you're done, you ring this bell and read off this quote from somebody famous, I guess, and you're done. As it stands right now, I have an appointment to see the radiation oncologist in a couple of weeks, but things look pretty good. I had another PSA test done. My PSA is unreadable. It's so low that the machine can't even read it, and that's where they want. That's what they want. That keeps it keeps the cancer starved, and hopefully the radiation killed it, and I'll be fine. So if you are a man older than 40 or approaching 40, and or you are married to one, or you know one, or you or or any if you know someone that you care about that's a male going to 40, make sure that you remind them to remind their physicians that they need to get a PSA test, because as any cancer, the sooner you detect it, the better. And the purpose of this talk, my children, is if you are experiencing this, or you're concerned about this, or you love someone who's going through prostate cancer, um, melanoma, or really any kind of cancer, uh, put it, leave a note in the comments, and I'll respond, and we'll see. Either we'll figure out a way that I can answer your questions. If it's simple, I'll just simply answer it. If it requires something else, and I have your permission, I'll make another video about it explaining it. I'll keep you confidential, of course, but I'll read your question and I'll respond to it. Remember, I am not a doctor. I am a healthcare worker, but I will not be giving medical advice here. I'm just a person who's gone through cancer twice. I've been through that trauma, and and maybe I can help you deal with it. If I will try if I can. So leave a comment and let me know. Well, that's enough jog japping for now, kids. You guys run along and play, and stay off my lawn.